The day her biological parents came to take her back to Beijing, Luis publicly confessed his love to someone else. In front of their childhood friends, he announced, "Good thing Nicole's real parents found her and brought her back home. Otherwise, with that spoiled attitude of hers, who knows how badly she would have kept bothering Emma. Hopefully, she stays in Beijing forever and never comes back." His friends exchanged worried glances, nervous she might overhear and ruin the moment. But she didn't. She simply smiled and boarded the plane to Beijing, just as Luis had wished. In this life, she would never return, because before leaving, she had accepted an arranged marriage from her biological family. Her future husband? Sam, heir to the wealthiest family in Beijing. Before departing, she left behind a bank card loaded with 10 million yuan, her way of repaying Luis and his parents for raising her. From that moment on, separated by oceans and silence, she and Luis would never meet again. When she first learned that her birth parents had found her, a whirlwind of emotions consumed her: bitterness, sorrow, and deep down, a fragile thread of hope. Naively, she thought that now, with the illusion of being siblings gone, she and Luis could finally be together like any ordinary couple, hand in hand for the rest of their lives. But when she rushed to tell him, that hope was crushed in an instant, like ice water poured over a dying flame. Inside a private room, Emma leaned against Luis's arm as if she belonged there, surrounded by friends who laughed and tossed compliments at them nonstop. "Damn, Luis. You really seduced your own sister? That's some next-level talent," one guy joked, wearing a tacky floral shirt.
I bet.
"My new Ferrari is yours now. This whole forbidden romance thing? Kinda exciting. Tell us, what's it like?" The room echoed with laughter, completely unfiltered. Luis's voice cut through it flat and cold. "Sister? She was just some stray we picked up off the street. Always trying so hard to please everyone, it's disgusting. I have no idea why my parents brought her home in the first place." Another friend swirled a wine glass and sneered, "I heard she's been bossing people around in your house, wrecking your relationships, just because she has your parents' support." Luis scoffed. "We fed her, gave her a roof for 18 years, and she actually thought she was part of the family. She's nothing but a worthless brat." More laughter. "Yeah, her real parents must have ditched her for a reason, probably because she's dead weight. Look at her, all pathetic. Her birth parents were probably ashamed of her. And she thinks she deserves you? What a joke. She's been living off your family while trying to seduce you. Shameless. Who knows what trick she used?" Each word stabbed Nicole like hot knives. In that moment, her secret love shattered. Everything she thought had been real, just a cruel game. She stood frozen in the doorway, fists clenched, nails digging into her palms. Her eyes burned, but she wouldn't let the tears fall. She inhaled twice and shoved the door open with all her strength. The loud bangs silenced the room. Ignoring their mocking stares, she walked straight to Luis. "Brother," she said, voice firm, "Mom wants you to come home." Luis, as she had always believed that if she waited long enough, if she had enough patience, someday he would lower his guard and smile at her again, gently, like he used to. But that slap so sharp, so humiliating, shattered every memory she had clung to. It felt like an invisible hand gripped her heart, squeezing until she could barely breathe. In that moment, she whispered to herself, "Just this once. Let it hurt. Let it destroy me. But after this, I'll let go of him forever." When she returned to Luis's house, she was numb. Each step felt like dragging a 1,000-pound chain behind her. In the living room, Luis's mother sat elegantly on the couch, admiring her freshly painted nails. Her polished face held no warmth, only sheer contempt. "Nicole," she snapped, her voice icy and sharp, "I told you to get rid of that slut Emma, and you failed. I asked you to bring Luis back, and you failed at that too. Worthless. What a waste, raising you in this house." Nicole lowered her head, unable to respond. "Or are you defying me on purpose?" the woman hissed. "Don't think for a second that just because I hate Emma, you have a chance with Luis. Do you even know your place? You're just a stray we took in, living off our charity and dreaming of climbing the social ladder." She looked her up and down with scorn, as if inspecting a defective product. The truth had never mattered to her. She never cared. She only knew how to blame, to wound with words sharper than any knife. She was always like that, sweet when she needed something, ruthless when she didn't get her way. Every time a girl entered Luis's life, the woman would send Nicole to deal with her. None of them were ever good enough, not for their status, so Nicole had to pay them off, send them away, eliminate them quietly. And she did, time after time, even when it felt dirty, degrading. But the moment Luis became upset and complained, his mother would suddenly play the innocent, pretending she had no idea. Then she would point the finger at Nicole, claiming jealousy, saying she had gone too far. And Luis, she always believed her. Every time. His eyes would go cold, distant, full of disgust. For the sake of the family's name, for the so-called debt she owed for being raised there, Nicole bit her tongue and endured in silence. It was like being tied up with invisible ropes, unable to resist, forced to suffer. But each wound, each betrayal left another deep cut inside her. Was the woman so terrified of her son's hatred that she used Nicole as a scapegoat? And now everything was suddenly her fault again? The look on Luis's mother's face turned dark as soon as Nicole raised her voice in defiance. She stood abruptly, marched over, and slapped her hard. The smack echoed through the room. "How dare you talk back to me?" she growled. "Ungrateful little wretch. 2 slaps in one day. What a miserable day." Nicole stared down at the phone number in her hand. Maybe, just maybe, if she went with her biological parents, she'd never have to endure any of this again. A week earlier, on her way home from school, a black luxury sedan with an 8 on the license plate had blocked her path. The door opened, and a graceful, well-dressed woman stepped out, her eyes filled with longing, guilt, and pain, tears threatening to spill. Beside her, a tall man stood straight, his expression stern but unable to hide the joy in his eyes. Maybe it was the pull of blood, but the moment Nicole saw them, something stirred in her. A strange sense of familiarity. They said they were her biological parents. At first, she didn't believe them. She thought they might be traffickers. But after much persuasion, she agreed to a DNA test. She still remembered how the slim report trembled in her hands as her eyes landed on the words, "Parent-child relationship confirmed." Strangely, her first thought wasn't about them. Instead, it was a memory: Luis's 17th birthday. That night, he had stood in front of her, his eyes brighter than stars in the night sky. There was something in his gaze, something she hadn't understood back then. Maybe it was the faint scent of alcohol in the air, or maybe it was pure honesty, but he had whispered, "You're the rose I planted with my own hands, watered only with love. If I weren't your brother, and you weren't my sister, maybe we could love each other freely." Her heart had pounded wildly. In that moment, a foolish, fragile love had taken root inside her, sprouting from nowhere, growing too fast, too deep. It was the kind of love that made her follow him blindly, like he was the only compass in her world. Back then, Luis was everything to her. So when her biological parents asked her to leave with them for Beijing, she rejected them without a second thought. She could still remember the disappointment in their eyes. Her mother had looked at her with a heartbreaking mix of sadness and tenderness. She took Nicole's hand gently, her lips trembling, as if she wanted to say something that might change her mind. But in the end, she said nothing. Her father stood beside her, silent, his furrowed brows full of frustration and sorrow. But they didn't push. They knew. After so many years apart, there was already a wall between them. Forcing her would only make it higher. So they let her go, back into the arms of the boy who would one day destroy her. Ipped his wine, silent. Emma quickly jumped in, grabbing Nicole's arm with fake cheer. "Nicole. Perfect timing. Come join the fun." Nicole instinctively pulled away. She had never liked being touched. Emma wasn't expecting that. She staggered back with a dramatic gasp and collapsed to the floor. Luis was on his feet immediately, helping her up. Emma clung to his chest, tears sparkling in her eyes. "Nicole, I know I promised I wouldn't come back, but I just couldn't stay away. Luis treats me so well." She paused, then looked at him meaningfully. Someone scoffed, "So that's why Emma disappeared." Nicole probably forced her to leave. Emma sobbed harder. "Luis, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have returned. Nicole must hate me. Luis's gaze turned icy. Without warning, he slapped Nicole across the face. The sound echoed. Her cheek burned as her head snapped to the side, ears ringing. Who do you think you are, storming in here to cause drama? He barked. Then he scooped Emma into his arms and stormed out. He didn't even glance back. In his eyes, there was no warmth left, only disgust. Nicole raised a trembling hand to her cheek, feeling her heart rip apart. She had grown used to his cruel words, yet a part of her still clung to the hope that this was just temporary, that he didn't really mean it, that maybe, just maybe, he was angry and would come around like he always did. She had told herself that same lie for 7 years. In her mind, she had imagined again and again the day they would finally face each other, clear up the past like when they were kids, and every argument ended with laughter. But this time it felt different. This time, it felt final. Business matters in Beijing demanded their attention, so after just 2 days with her, Nicole's birth parents left with heavy hearts. Before they departed, her mother took her hand and squeezed it tightly. "Don't ever let anyone hurt you," she said softly. "If you ever run into trouble, promise me you'll call us. No matter what happens, we'll always be your biggest support." For the first time, her father's stern expression softened as he looked at her. He pulled out several bank cards and handed them to her. "Use these however you like. Buy whatever you need. You young people use WeChat, right?" he said, unlocking his phone with surprising ease. "Add me. From now on, I'll transfer you money every day. We've failed you for so many years, and the least we can do now is make sure you live without worries." In his eyes, she saw regret, but also unconditional love. He looked at her like she was a lost treasure, finally found something he was determined to protect and make up for. And in that moment, Nicole finally understood. This is what a real family feels like. She couldn't lie to herself. She was moved. Meanwhile, Luis had gotten into a massive fight with his parents over Emma. Enraged, his father locked him in his room and forbade him from leaving. But Luis, blinded by his obsession, refused to accept defeat. He jumped from the third-story window in a desperate bid to escape and ended up with a broken right leg. They rushed him to the hospital. In the past, even the smallest scratch on Luis would have shaken Nicole to the core. She remembered when they were kids, and he had fallen from a rock in the garden. She cried nonstop for an entire day and night, her eyes swollen like walnuts. She hadn't left his bedside for a single second. Luis had laughed gently at her worried face, ruffling her hair and promising, "I'll never be reckless again. I'll take care of myself and take care of you too." Back then, they had been inseparable. When had everything gone so horribly wrong? Nicole tried to suppress the emotions boiling inside her. Just then, a sugary sweet voice pulled her back to reality. "Nicole, did you come to visit Luis?" She looked up to see Emma approaching gracefully, dressed in a flowing white dress, delicate as a lotus in bloom, carrying a lunchbox in her hands. Nicole didn't respond. She had no interest in exchanging a single word. Emma noticed her coldness and dropped her sweet facade, her eyes flashing with jealousy and disdain. "TCH, drop the act. I heard you found your real parents. What's wrong? Afraid of losing Luis's fortune, so you came crawling back to beg him to let you stay." Nicole let out a quiet, scornful laugh. "You think everyone's like you, willing to do anything for money and status?" "Me?" Emma scoffed. "Nicole, you've lived in Luis's house for years, enjoying everything he has. Don't pretend you haven't been clinging to him this whole time." Nicole stood up slowly and met her gaze without flinching. "My conscience is clean. But you really think his parents don't see through your little tricks? You've only fooled Luis, no one else." At that moment, Nicole heard footsteps. Emma's eyes lit up with an idea. Without warning, she dropped the lunchbox, sending dishes crashing to the ground and food spilling everywhere. Then she hurled herself into the wall and let out a blood-curdling scream. Nicole stared at her, speechless. "Really? So when you run out of lies, you play the victim?" But before she could react, someone shoved her violently. Luis had arrived, limping, his face twisted with fury. Emma curled into his chest, sobbing like a broken doll. "Luis, I just wanted to see you to talk with Nicole. I don't know why she did this, I'm scared. Luis, do you really think I'm stupid enough to attack her here in public? Nicole snapped. But before she could finish, Luis raised his hand. She dodged just in time, the wind of his swing brushing past her face. Her eyes widened. Luis, did you just try to hit me? Something inside her snapped. Before she could think, her palm flew across his cheek with a loud crack. Then, ice cold, she grabbed Emma by the hair and slammed her into the wall. Look closely, Luis. This one, I did on purpose. Emma trembled, her forehead red from the impact. Luis stared at Nicole in shock. Nicole, you're insane. A passerby who had witnessed everything recorded the scene and uploaded it online. Within hours, it exploded across social media, twisted into a scandalous headline: 2 women fighting over a man-mistress versus
fiancé.
Nicole never imagined that before leaving, she'd finally get the chance to lash out freely. But the moment Luis tried to hit her, she woke up from her long, foolish dream. The blind love she once had, the years of selfless devotion became nothing but a cruel joke. She had finally awakened and made her decision. She had already called her biological parents. She was going to Beijing. A new life waited there. What she didn't expect was the bombshell they dropped during that phone call. Her parents had already arranged a marriage for her. According to her mother, her grandfather and the grandfather of the richest man in the country had once been war comrades, sharing blood and danger on the battlefield. In their youth, they made a pact to one day unite their families through marriage. But fate had other plans. Nicole had been kidnapped when she was only 5. Her family never stopped searching for her, year after year, never knowing that she had been living so close just a few miles from Beijing and Haicheng. They finally found her through a trace left in a hospital's medical records. Now, the grandfather of the other family, the one her family had made a promise to, was growing old and frail. His greatest wish before leaving this world was to see his grandson married. Despite the passing years, he still held tightly to the vow he had made with Nicole's grandfather. He had always hoped Nicole would become his grandson's bride. She admired the old man, respected him, and she believed that anyone raised by such a person couldn't possibly be a bad man. An arranged marriage sounded cold, distant, like something out of a bygone era, but maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to start over. A way to finally find the peace she had longed for. Perhaps accepting what fate had quietly placed in front of her wasn't such a terrible idea after all. The day she left, the sun was as bright as ever. She looked around one last time, but took nothing with her. The belongings she had gathered over the years were nothing more than reminders of a life she no longer wished to carry. On the desk in her room, she left a bank card loaded with 10 million yuan. Considerate payment, she thought, for the years Luis and his family had raised her. She didn't want anything from them, not their money, not their affection. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Luis had rented out the most luxurious restaurant in Haicheng to make an over-the-top public declaration of love to Emma. Nicole's WeChat was flooded with photos and videos. Colorful balloons floated above. Crimson roses blanketed the floor like a sea of fire. At the center of it all, Luis and Emma stood hand in hand, gazing into each other's eyes like 2 characters pulled straight from a fairy tale, as if the entire world had melted away and left only the 2 of them. Their friends cheered and showered them with congratulations. Nicole laughed at herself. In their eyes, she really had become the bitter ex-villain, in some cheap soap opera, the one trying to sabotage true love. With nothing else to do, she sat in the airport lounge, waiting for her flight. One by one, she deleted contacts, left group chats, and blocked them all, cutting off every thread that tied her to the past. Just then, her phone rang. It was her best friend, Rita. Nicole. Where the hell are you? Her voice was as loud and blunt as always. At the airport. What? Are you seriously leaving like this? Rita's disbelief was palpable. Listen, remember how you asked me to look into why Emma disappeared before? Well, I found out. And trust mites juicy. Get out of there, Rita urged. Let's crash their little fantasy. Nicole shook her head, her voice calm.
No.
I don't want anything to do with Luis or Emma anymore. I've been trapped in their world for too long. It's time I leave. She smiled. Besides, I'm off to marry a millionaire heir now. I'm going to be a rich wife. Rita gasped. Wait, your birth parents actually arranged that marriage? Yep, Nicole replied, still joking. The heir to the richest family in the country. At this point, let money corrupt me. I don't even care what he looks like. I'm in love with wealth now. She laughed, but then her eyes fell on the photo her mother had sent her. Sam. The moment she saw his face, she froze. It was the kind of face sculpted by the god's flawless porcelain skin, sharp, symmetrical features, and eyes that seemed to hold an entire galaxy. All her resistance to the idea of an arranged marriage vanished instantly.
Ah.
So this was what it felt like to forget. Back in the grand banquet hall, Luis's eyes drifted to the corner of the room, where Rita stood with her phone pressed tightly to her ear. Her expression was tense as she spoke in hushed tones, occasionally glancing around as if she were waiting for something or someone. Luis smirked. He knew that out of everyone here, Rita was closest to Nicole. She was always the first to warn her when something happened. Luis felt conflicted. On one hand, he hated how Nicole always seemed to be watching him, like some unshakable shadow. But on the other hand, he thrived on it. He loved knowing that Nicole's world revolved around him. That to her, he was the sun, her only light, her everything. Irreplaceable. Unreachable. And this time was no different. He had chosen this exact day to throw his grand love confession to Emma, knowing it was also the day Nicole was flying to Beijing. A selfish, hidden part of him still hoped, though he'd never admit it. With a casual lift of his chin, he told his friends, good thing Nicole's biological parents found her and took her away. Otherwise, with her bratty attitude, who knows how much she would have tormented Emma. His voice was light, but the way he gripped his wine glass said otherwise. She's probably at the airport right now, one friend joked. Or maybe she changed her mind and is on her way to crash the party. Huh? With her temper? I wouldn't be surprised if she caused a full-on scene right here. Didn't she slap both Luis and Emma the other day? Yes, sounds like your classic scorn ex. Luis swirled the wine in his glass, watching the red liquid glisten under the chandeliers. When he recalled that slap, he could almost feel the sting on his cheek again. No matter how far he had pushed her in the past, Nicole had never raised a hand to him. Even when she was furious, she had always swallowed her emotions for him. But not anymore. Luis clenched his jaw, a dark shadow flashing across his eyes. Let her come back, he thought. He would make her pay for what she had done. Just then, one of his friends, a man with scars across his face and a sleazy smirk, leaned in with a wicked grin. Shame, huh? With a face like that, if I had known it would end this way, I would have had her first. Didn't Victor try to drug her once? Another laughed. Too bad he failed. We all could have taken a turn. A few of the men exchanged vile, complicit smiles.
Exactly.
That body? If she shows up tonight, we'll have plenty of chances to teach her a lesson. The moment those repulsive words reached Luis's ears, a wave of rage erupted inside him like a storm. He didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he hurled his wine glass straight into the scarred man's face. Glass exploded, crimson wine splattering across the room, mixing with the blood that began trickling from the fresh cuts. You disgusting bastards, Luis roared, eyes blazing with fury. Without a second thought, he lunged, grabbed the man by his collar, and landed a brutal punch square in his jaw. How dare you even think about her like that? The room buzzed with stunned whispers. No one had expected Luis to lose control like this, especially not over Nicole. His friends rushed in to pull him back, trying to restrain him as he thrashed against their grip. Luis, what the hell? It was just a joke. We've said stuff like that before. To them, vulgar comments about women were just idle entertainment, a twisted form of amusement. Crude jokes and perverse insinuations were part of their routine, a game they played without guilt. Emma's gonna be here any second. Don't make a scene over this, one of them warned. But Luis shoved them aside. His sharp glare swept across the room. Silence fell. Everyone could feel it. What was supposed to be a celebration had shifted. From the start, they had expected drama. But no one imagined that the one to light the match would be the man at the center of it all. The shattered wine glass glittered on the floor beneath the chandelier, like a war banner on a battlefield. It was official. The fragile piece had shattered. And this was only the beginning. On the giant screen above the banquet hall, a romantic slideshow had been playing supposedly a heartwarming tribute to Luis and Emma's love story. But midway through the video, the images suddenly changed. What followed sent a chill through the entire room. Emma appeared captured in a series of compromising photos with a wealthy businessman. One after another, scandalous images flashed on screen, each more damning than the last, hitting Luis like a slap to the face. The scenes were explicit, unmistakable, and left everyone speechless. But it didn't stop there. The video rolled on, revealing even more damning evidence: voice recordings, surveillance footage, suggestive text messages. The truth was undeniable. Emma hadn't left for noble reasons. She hadn't gone abroad for school or self-sacrifice. She had found a rich man and was planning to squeeze one last payout before disappearing. While Luis's family was immensely wealthy, their finances were tightly controlled. In contrast, the businessman gave her tens of thousands each month and a limitless credit card. For Emma, it was a no-brainer. That man was the better deal. But truth has a way of catching up. While overseas, her affair had been exposed to be the businessman's legal wife, a woman with power and influence. Cornered and disgraced, Emma had no choice but to flee back home to hide. The banquet hall erupted in gasps and stunned murmurs. Emma's face turned ghostly white. Her wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Desperate, she dashed toward the backstage, trying to stop the footage from playing. Her elegant demeanor dissolved into a scene of sheer panic. "No, this isn't real. It's Nicole. She's behind this," she screamed, tears flooding her eyes. She turned to Luis, pleading. "Luis, please. You have to believe me. I love you." Luis stared at her, expression unreadable. There was no denying it. Emma was still beautiful. Even in disgrace, her vulnerability had a kind of softness that could make any man hesitate, that sparked a desire to protect her. She had been his first love, and the feelings built during the innocence of youth were always the hardest to erase. For years, he had believed she was the one, irreplaceable, incomparable. When she had vanished without finishing school, he had blamed Nicole, convinced she had driven Emma away. That lie had festered inside him like poison, twisting his thoughts and filling him with bitterness. He had drowned himself in nightlife, cigarettes, and liquor, numbing the emptiness inside. He surrounded himself with hollow people, picked fights in meaningless places, spiraling deeper with each passing day. Every indulgence, every moment of self-destruction was a punishment, a rebellion against the past, a silent war against himself, and a cruel vengeance against Nicole. He had never imagined that the truth he had clung to so fiercely would crumble before his eyes like a sandcastle washed away by the tide. The grand declaration of love had ended in disgrace. Luis returned home in a daze, his mind swirling in silence. As he walked down the hallway, he stopped in front of the door to the room that once belonged to her. His hand hovered for a moment before slowly pushing it open. Nothing had changed. Everything was exactly as she had left it, as if time itself had frozen in that space. A flicker of hope stirred in his chest. For a brief second, he wondered if maybe she might still come back. On the nightstand, the eternal flower he once gave her still shimmered under the sunlight, as vibrant as the day he'd placed it there. It whispered of promises long buried. Back then, before Emma had ever entered his life, he had told her, "You are the flower I planted with my own hands, watered with love you'll never wither. You'll always shine." And in that moment, he felt 17 again. A boy whose world revolved around a single girl, his heart full of dreams of a future they would share. But now brushed his fingers over the petals, feeling where the colors had faded, where the texture had stiffened. Traces of dried tears stained them, invisible scars time hadn't erased. He rubbed his tired eyes, but something on the desk caught his peripheral vision. His entire body stiffened. His breath stopped. He staggered back, as if struck. There, resting quietly on the table, was a bank card.
Small.
Unassuming. But in his hands, it felt like searing metal, burning through his skin, branding his soul with unbearable pain. He knew what it meant. It was her final goodbye, the symbol of an irrevocable break. A message silent and absolute Nicole, had severed every tie between them. She had erased herself from his life completely. Luis clutched the card so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His lips trembled slightly, but no words came out. Only silence remained, and a bottomless pit of regret swallowing him whole. Meanwhile, Nicole was seated in her new home in Beijing, facing Sam across the room, when Rita called again. "Nicole, you should have seen Emma's face." Rita was laughing so hard she could barely speak. She looked like a plucked chicken, absolutely pathetic. And Luis, oh my God. He probably never thought his precious fairy tale love would end like that. Honestly, he had it coming.
Nicole didn't respond.
Rita sighed. TCH. Anyway, forget them. How's your new place? Nicole had always known that any family capable of arranging a marriage with the heir to the country's wealthiest empire would be far from ordinary. But she hadn't truly grasped the scale until she arrived. Situated in one of the most expensive cities in the world, her new home wasn't just a mansion, it was a literal estate. Perfectly manicured gardens stretched endlessly like velvet carpets. At the center stood a castle, grand, gleaming, and breathtaking. And the craziest part? This wasn't even the main residence. It was simply the welcome gift prepared for her. A place so lavish it felt like she'd accidentally stumbled into someone else's dream. She glanced sideways at the man beside her, Sam, whose beauty seemed just as unreal as the life now surrounding her. This story had flipped from villain ex-girlfriend to long-lost royal daughter in a matter of days. "Why are you smiling like that?" Sam's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, casting golden rays through his hair. He leaned slightly closer, closing the distance between them. A soft scent of mint lingered in the air. "My friend," she said with a little laugh. "She just told me something funny." Without realizing it, her voice had softened, as though she didn't want to shatter the fragile magic of this moment. "Must have been hilarious," Sam replied with a warm smile. He paused, his eyes sparkling with something unspoken. "I know a place where we can double that happiness. Wanna go?" Her cheeks flushed instantly. What kind of place?" "An amusement park," he answered plainly, his gaze lit with innocent excitement. She let out a nervous chuckle, quickly shaking away the thoughts swirling in her head. Sam walked beside her with a quiet ease, always keeping a respectful distance. But every now and then, their arms would brush, just slightly. Each accidental touch sent a soft jolt up her skin, a tingling warmth that spread to her cheeks. She looked away, slightly embarrassed, but somewhere deep inside, she was already looking forward to the next one. After trying a few rides, Sam guided her to the Ferris wheel. Above them, the night sky bloomed with color. Each cabin glowed like a tiny floating world, slowly rising and falling like the rhythm of fate spinning overhead. "You know," Sam said quietly, "I've been here more times than I can count. But I always wondered if I hadn't insisted on going that day, maybe you wouldn't have gone missing." He took a deep breath, his voice laced with something tender, hopeful, gentle, and something else, something she couldn't quite read. "You were so little back then, and was too busy playing around to notice. I let go of your hand. And when I realized you were gone, it felt like my entire world collapsed." As he spoke, blurry images stirred in Nicole's mind, the sunlight reflecting off the colorful pavement of the amusement park, a little girl in a yellow dress with two pigtails staring up at a young Sam. "Big brother, I like you more than anyone." The little Sam had smiled at her so sweetly. And now, beneath the glowing Ferris wheel, the grown Sam gently reached out and brushed her hair back. A quiet warmth settled around them, wrapping the moment in a fragile, unspoken tension. "Thank you for coming back," he whispered. Her heart raced. The world around her faded into a soft haze except for him. The next day, her parents wasted no time in making her return official. Her surname was changed. And the moment Nicole saw her new ID, with those 3 freshly printed characters, a strange sense of belonging washed over her. It felt as if, after years of drifting without an anchor, her heart had finally found home. Her mother and father treated her like a long-lost treasure they had finally recovered, gentle, loving, and embarrassingly enthusiastic. They gave her everything she could want except privacy when it came to Sam. Almost every day, someone in the house would casually bring it up. Nicole, sweetheart, Sam is a wonderful young man, her mom would say with a wink. I can see how much he likes you. Then, more gently, but if you don't feel the same way, that's okay too. What matters most is your happiness. It wasn't that Nicole didn't like Sam. It was just all of this seemed too perfect. A man like him, unrealistically handsome, effortlessly charming, with a sculpted body and elite family. Why would someone like that be interested in someone like her? It felt like he had been engineered by the universe to match every single one of her preferences. Was this a scam? Rita always said it was just karma finally balancing things out after the disaster that was Luis. You survived the worst, girl, she declared. Now the universe owes you. Her mother gently stroked her hair. My beautiful daughter deserves the best this world has to offer. After a couple of weeks in Beijing, Nicole started to fall into the rhythm of her new life, eating well, relaxing, and flirting a little too easily with her perfect fiancé. It was safe to say her life here was leagues better than the one she'd left behind in Beijing. What she didn't expect was to see Luis again. The butler came to her room one afternoon and informed her that a man was outside demanding to see her. Even after security threw him out, he refused to leave. Curiosity got the better of her, and she stepped outside. Luis stood there, but he wasn't the man she remembered. The once polished, self-assured Luis now looked disheveled, with messy hair and bloodshot eyes from sleepless nights. He held a bouquet of roses in trembling hands. Nicole, his voice was hoarse, and even saying her name made it shake. What are you doing here? You're not welcome. Nicole, I know I messed up. I was a fool. He stepped closer. I never should have treated you that way. I never should have let them humiliate you. And more than anything, I never should have been so blind to what I really felt. Nicole laughed coldly. Don't you think it's a little late for this? Who do you think you are? You honestly believe one apology can erase everything you put me through? Pain flashed across his face. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But, Nicole, I can't live without you. Ever since you left, it feels like my heart's been torn apart. He tried to take her hand, but she pulled away harshly. We grew up together, he muttered, eyes red, and then, with a dull thud, dropped to his knees. Nicole stood frozen. Please, Nicole, give me a chance.
Just Oneto make things right.
I love you. I finally understand that now. I've always loved you, but my pride and my own lies blinded me. It doesn't matter anymore, she said softly but firmly. I have a new life. Someone who truly loves me and respects me. I don't need your regret.
Leave.
And don't come back. Luis, still clinging to the last shred of hope, reached out his hand again, but before he could take another step, a figure blocked his path.
Sam.
Sam? What are you doing here? Nicole asked, surprised. Someone obviously tipped me off, he said calmly, nodding toward the butler, who peeked out from behind the doorway, winked, and disappeared. This is between Nicole and me. You have no right to interfere. Luis snapped, eyes blazing with jealousy. No right? Sam chuckled, his voice cold and commanding. Nicole is my fiancée, and I won't let you hurt her again. Nicole stepped behind Sam, her heart fluttering as he stood like a wall between her and the man who had once broken her. Her eyes sparkled. This level of protectiveness was almost too perfect to handle. Leave, Luis. Don't make me start hating you even more, she said. Her tone was steady, unshakable. She knew she had truly moved on. Sam released Luis's wrist with a look of pure contempt, as if brushing off something worthless. Then he wrapped an arm around Nicole, drawing her close, shielding her. Luis stumbled back, as if every last ounce of strength had drained from him. Then slowly, silently, he turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. Later, as they strolled through the gardens, Sam suddenly stopped. Before Nicole could react, he turned and pulled her into a firm embrace. He buried his face in the curve of her neck, his warm breath brushing against her skin.